course, people talk about the history of journalism, and it's always the Gutenberg, and they mentioned the printing press. But as you point out, a printing press without accessible paper and cheap paper, is not worth much. So talk about about paper, is the role really of paper in terms of promoting, the printed word.
Oh yes, yeah. Gutenberg's a fascinating story. You can't help feeling terrible for the guy because he put all this work into inventing the printing press, um, and perfecting the right kinds of ink so that it
Hmm.
can produce. I think he produced about 1,000 copies of the Bible,
Hmm.
and he had been loaned the money by a wealthy lawyer, and then after selling not many copies, he basically went bankrupt, and the lawyer, basically took all the equipment away from him.
Oh,
And he
wow.
spent the rest of his life working in someone else's printing shop, and I think in sort of dying in obscurity. Um, but around this time, a little shortly later, um, the invention of paper, of course, was in China, and this definitely moved westward through Islamic kingdoms, Islamic civilization. And in Italy, is basically in Italy that the same thing. Mills were now devised to make cheap paper, basically pounding all the rags that they would use to kind of come up with the material. And once that was done, once paper, this is an interesting thing, is the initial drive for paper was for the emerging merchant class in Italy, because they needed paper to write down, to keep accounts
Hmm.
about everything they were selling, everything they were buying. Um, and then this very quickly got adopted into bookmaking, so that within, again, a very short amount of time, books could be produced much more cheaply. And so that they wouldn't be just, these expensive Bibles sold to, like, rich clerics, but now everyday people could buy their own Bibles and pamphlets, and this opened up the door to all sorts of possibilities. The bad news for the Catholic Church, of course, was that in those days, once people started reading their own Bibles, they started questioning a lot of the things that the church had been teaching them, and said, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't in the Bible. Where did this come from?" And that's one of the main instigators of the Protestant Reformation.
Wow.
Um, and But also down the road, also the scientific revolution, because again, as literacy spread, you had more and more people wanting to go to the university and study science.
Right.
So
Right.